Nobody saw it coming. Not the analysts, not the fans, not even the insiders who live and breathe basketball news every single day. Because the moment three names appeared together on what could only be described as the most shocking conference call in basketball history, the sports world stopped in its tracks. Caitlin Clark, the unstoppable rookie rewriting every record in women's basketball, suddenly found herself side by side with two legends whose names are etched into the very foundation of the game, Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, a trio so unlikely that the announcement emerging from this collaboration has the power to shake the entire sports industry to its core. Not just the WNBA, not just basketball, but the very business of endorsements, global partnerships, and the way athletic legacy is built across generations. Because what could possibly unite the greatest competitor of all time, the ultimate clutch performer, and the rookie phenomenon who is redefining women's sports before our eyes? What kind of move is so massive, so unprecedented, that it forces three basketball immortals to bring their voices, their brands, and their influence together? The answer could reshape everything we thought we knew about professional basketball and the future of the WNBA. Professional basketball has always thrived on the bond between generations, the passing of wisdom from legends to rising stars, and throughout history, we've seen iconic players step off the court only to become mentors, advisors, and business partners for the next wave of talent. But this time feels different, because Michael Jordan's influence in the sport never stopped when he retired. His ownership of the Charlotte Hornets, his billion-dollar Jordan brand with Nike, and his countless investments have kept him at the very top of basketball business power. Larry Bird, too, has spent decades shaping the game from the sidelines, leading the Pacers as coach and executive, building playoff rosters, and leaving his stamp on Indiana basketball forever. And now, standing beside them is Caitlin Clark, the rookie who transformed the Indiana Fever overnight, who sells out arenas, breaks television records, and commands sponsorship deals on a scale the WNBA has never seen. So, when these three figures suddenly find themselves aligned, fans can't help but wonder what kind of announcement could be big enough to link Jordan's competitive fire, Bird's basketball intelligence, and Clark's unstoppable momentum. Because the answer could mean a complete redefinition of how power, influence, and opportunity flow in the world of professional basketball. Caitlin Clark's arrival didn't just change the Fever, it rewrote the entire business model of the WNBA. Because in one season, she became the most marketable player the league has ever seen, pulling in endorsement deals from Nike, Gatorade, Wilson Sporting Goods, and countless other brands desperate to be attached to her name. Her merchandise sales shattered records, her jersey flew off the shelves, and her signature Nike deal, complete with a future shoe line and global campaigns, elevated her into territory usually reserved for NBA superstars. But the real shock comes from the numbers, because Clark's social media reach now eclipses many veteran NBA players. Her millions of followers engage at staggering rates, giving her a digital power that no WNBA athlete has ever held. And that influence translates into dollars, attention, and leverage. The kind of leverage that could force major changes in how the league operates. So, when you combine Clark's rising empire with Jordan's billion-dollar legacy and Bird's deep roots in Indiana basketball, what you get is a partnership with the potential to completely rewrite the rules of sports marketing, cross-generational mentorship, and the global growth of women's basketball. Michael Jordan's legacy in business is almost as legendary as his career on the court, because while he dominated as a player, his post-basketball empire has turned him into one of the wealthiest athletes in history, with an estimated net worth surpassing $3 billion. Fueled largely by the Jordan brand partnership with Nike that alone generates over $5 billion in revenue annually. And every year, Jordan still earns hundreds of millions in royalties, proof that his name carries unstoppable commercial power even decades after retirement. His ownership of the Charlotte Hornets gave him direct influence inside NBA operations, while his investments in restaurants, car dealerships, and sports ventures showed how carefully he builds alliances that always elevate his brand. And now, imagine that influence redirected toward women's basketball through Caitlin Clark, a player whose marketability is growing at lightning speed. Because if Jordan even touches a partnership with her, the commercial value skyrockets instantly. The cameras follow, the sponsors flood in, and the credibility becomes unshakable. which is why analysts say any venture with Jordan's stamp isn't just a deal, it's a revolution waiting to happen. Larry Bird's story is different but no less powerful, because while Jordan built a global brand, Bird built his empire through leadership, intelligence, and a relentless connection to Indiana basketball. From his days as a small-town kid in French Lick to his legendary run at Indiana State, where he carried the Sycamores all the way to the 1,979 NCAA title game against Magic Johnson in one of the most-watched college games in history, to becoming the face of the Boston Celtics dynasty, winning 3 MVPs and 3 championships, then later stepping into coaching and front office roles with the Indiana Pacers, where he earned Coach of the Year, Executive of the Year, and cemented himself as a master of both talent evaluation and basketball strategy. Bird has lived every role the game has to offer, and now with Caitlin Clark representing the future of Indiana basketball, the natural connection is impossible to ignore, because Bird's basketball IQ and deep understanding of Indiana culture could merge with Clark's explosive star power to create a bond that elevates not just the Fever, but the entire WNBA, proving that when legends pass down their knowledge to the new generation, history isn't just remembered, it's rewritten. Caitlin Clark's rookie season didn't just put her in the spotlight, it set a brand new standard for what women's basketball could be. Because she didn't arrive quietly, she stormed the league, averaging nearly 20 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds per game, while dragging the Indiana Fever back into the playoffs for the first time in years. But beyond the stats, it was her impact off the court that shook the foundation of the WNBA. Season ticket sales jumped by more than 400%. Every home game turned into a sellout at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and television ratings smashed through the million-viewer barrier on a regular basis, with marquee matchups even topping 2 million, numbers that rival NBA broadcasts and force sponsors, networks, and investors to finally recognize women's basketball as a major commercial force. And in the middle of this transformation, Clark became more than just a rookie. She became a symbol, the face of the league, the player who carried not only her team, but the business future of the WNBA itself. And when you put someone with that kind of momentum in the same room with Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, you're not talking about just basketball anymore, you're talking about rewriting the business of sports as a whole. When you line up Jordan's competitive fire, Bird's basketball intelligence, and Clark's explosive rise, you start to see a formula for something the sports world has never witnessed before, because Jordan's unmatched hunger to dominate didn't end when he left the court, it lives on in every business decision he makes. Bird's legendary vision and understanding of how to build winning rosters still echoes through every Pacers season, and Clark's relentless drive to prove she belongs at the very top is already changing the way people watch women's basketball. So put all three together and you have a powerhouse of influence that can't be ignored, a combination of legacy, intelligence, and star power that could fuel new academies, training programs, sponsorship deals, and maybe even create a brand that bridges men's and women's basketball like never before. Because this isn't just about players, it's about eras colliding, it's about the past, the present, and the future of the game sitting at the same table, ready to flip the basketball world upside down. The business possibilities of this trio stretch far beyond the court. Because think about it, Jordan turned a pair of sneakers into a global empire worth billions. Bird transformed the Pacers into a contender through sharp decisions and pure basketball IQ. And Clark is the new face of women's sports with the kind of digital influence and fan power that every brand in the world is chasing. So imagine them building training facilities that combine Jordan's competitive edge, Bird's coaching expertise, and Clark's modern approach to player development. Imagine them launching media ventures, documentaries, or streaming content that tells basketball's story from 3 unique perspectives across 3 different eras. Imagine signature products and endorsements that carry not just one legendary name, but 3, instantly multiplying their value and credibility. And when you factor in Clark's role as the rising icon of women's basketball, this kind of partnership could become the spark that finally bridges the gap between the NBA and the WNBA, creating opportunities that benefit players, fans, and the entire future of the sport. The impact of a collaboration between Caitlin Clark, Michael Jordan, and Larry Bird wouldn't just change the fever, it would ripple across every level of basketball because youth programs could explode with new funding and star-powered mentorship. Women's basketball could finally receive the kind of mainstream coverage and respect it has always deserved, and international markets would see the WNBA not just as a league, but as a global brand with unstoppable momentum. Jordan brings global recognition, Bird brings Indiana's authenticity, and Clark brings the next generation of fans and athletes. Together, they touch every audience, from the grassroots kid dreaming on a driveway hoop to the executive sitting in a boardroom negotiating billion-dollar deals. And that's why this potential partnership feels less like a business move and more like a turning point in basketball history, a moment that could redefine how the sport grows, how athletes build their legacies, and how women's basketball finally steps into the global spotlight it has earned. So here we are, standing at the edge of a basketball revolution, because when you bring together the greatest competitor of all time in Michael Jordan, the ultimate strategist and Indiana icon in Larry Bird, and the rookie phenom rewriting history in Caitlin Clark, you're not just witnessing a partnership, you're watching the future of the sport being written in real time. The WNBA has never had this much momentum, never had this much global attention, and never had this much star power united under one vision. And the announcement that could emerge from this alliance might not only reshape women's basketball, but transform professional sports forever. Because for the first time, legends from the past and the brightest star of the present are ready to join forces. And the only question left is simple. Are we about to see the moment that changes basketball history for good? Or will this remain the biggest what if the game has ever known? Either way, the world is watching, and Caitlin Clark is once again at the very center of it all.